my channel. My name is Eleanor and today I'm going to be sharing my testimony with you. Basically what a testimony is how I came to know Christ and how he has changed my life forever. Before we get started, it is going to be a pretty lengthy video. I'm not going to go into too much detail about everything. Yeah, so just letting you guys know, so grab a snack if you have to, or just be prepared to watch a sort of long video. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started. So basically, I did grow up Catholic. I just remember that as I was growing up, when I started school around 5 years old, I had changed schools about every year up until my 8th grade year. So I was never able to keep friends because I was always moving, and so I was pretty alone as a child. I just remember that in my 6th grade year, my parents had started fighting, and you know, it was just always like, it was like constant fighting. And then I remember my 7th grade year, my parents had separated. Me and my mom moved to Austin. And I just remember that being one of the loneliest times for me, not only for me, but for my mom. With those couple of months that we lived there, I made 0 friends. Like, when I say 0 friends, I literally mean 0 friends. And I just was just an outcast, and you know, everybody had their group of friends, and I couldn't fit in anywhere, and I just remember really trying. So that was really hard for me and my mom. My mom had noticed how lonely I was, and I mean, I'm sure she noticed how lonely she was. So we ended up moving back to my hometown, which is Dallas, Texas. Ended up moving with my dad again. So they were still separated, but we were living with them because we didn't know, or we were living with him because we didn't know where to live. And so things were really toxic in the house. I mean, my mom and my dad were sleeping in different rooms, and my mom would sleep with me, my dad would sleep in his own room, and it was just really silent. And I don't know how long that lasted for, but I remember it being such like a really long time, and it was, you know, it was a really kind of unbearable to come home to that, because it was just so sad and so silent and so depressing. And you know, I think I was about 12 years old at this time, and that's when I had been offered to smoke weed. And for me, that you know, I was told it was gonna make me feel better. For me, I was pretty vulnerable, you know, with where I was. So I definitely, you know, I tried it, and I did end up liking it. And so, I mean, I wasn't routinely smoking weed every single day. It would just be like when I would hang out with like my sister or my cousins, or just like a weekend thing. I guess when I was about 13 or 14, things did start to patch up a little bit better with my parents. So they did start to fix things. They never ever went through with the divorce, which I really thought they would, but they didn't. So I'm really grateful for that. Let's go ahead and fast forward to when I was about a freshman in high school, and I was basically still smoking. You know, ever since I had tried it, I never really put it down, just because it was kind of like a getaway, and it was really fun for me at that time. So I was like, whoa, smoking weed, let's do it. You know, like, you're young, and it made me feel a certain type of way. Basically, after I was done with middle school, I had went to the high school that was right next to the middle school. And so from there, when I was going to that high school, I had reconnected with one of my old best friends. She was one of my best friends from the 3rd grade to the 5th grade before I had moved to a different school. So we started hanging out all the time. And I just remember we had started to go to concerts together, and we had started smoking weed together. From there, we started to go to other concerts. So we had started with like indie rock concerts, and then now like we had, you know, and then we had started to go to like raves and, you know, big concerts like that. And then when you're at those concerts, there's definitely more drugs than just weed. So I started to definitely experiment with ecstasy. I had an addictive personality, so anything I tried and anything I liked, I would stick to it. I liked ecstasy, and I liked the concerts, and I loved that like type of life. Experimenting with ecstasy and weed, it then turned into like cocaine and acid and just all these crazy drugs that I don't recommend anyone to try, but I just remember, my life literally falling downhill from there. And, I was about 17 years old when I had gotten addicted, like heavily addicted to Xanax. I mean, I would need about 3 or 4 Xanax pills to just even feel like I needed to function. It took control of my life in a way where I didn't want it to. I mean, I had fell into depression, and I was just super anxious all the time, which is why I used Xanax for, to cover up everything. I went to the mental hospital because I did try to kill myself, because I just really thought that life was terrible. My parents didn't really see it because I was still making good grades in school, but they did end up realizing how different I was acting. I was very isolated, and I just wasn't as happy as I used to be. And you could just tell in the way I carried myself that like there was something wrong with me. So I just remember one day I took about 5 or 6 Xanaxes, and I went to school and something happened. I don't remember what happened, but I went to the nurse, and I told the nurse I wanted to kill myself. And so the nurse, obviously she has to call the cops, and the cops took me to a rehab facility. I lived there for a month basically, and I remember telling myself, okay, I need to get clean because getting high doesn't make me feel good anymore. I remember being in rehab and just feeling a little bit more in control of myself. And so I do remember getting out, and I had to switch high schools in the middle of my senior year. Not even in the middle, it was like towards the end. I had 2 months left. I was clean for a really long time until my senior prom. And so my senior prom, that night I did relapse. My addiction went full blown again. I reconnected with old friends I was using with, and I was using more Xanax than ever, more things to keep me high all the time. And I was just sleeping with so many different guys, and things just weren't all that great. And so I graduated from high school, and like I said, I was hanging out with my old friends, and I was just in a really, really bad crowd. Parents, they didn't know what to do anymore, so they kicked me out. And I remember I was working at Hooters, which is kind of like a bar. It's kind of like a bar where you basically don't wear any clothes. You're kind of just like in these booty shorts and this tank top where your boobs are literally hanging out of your shirt. So that was a job I picked up, and I remember working there, and I had been introduced to the idea of sugar daddies. So because my parents had kicked me out, and I basically had I didn't know what to do. I was so lost. I didn't have anywhere to live for a while. And so I did pursue the whole sugar daddy thing. And it's kind of like, it was more like an escort type thing. And, I'm definitely not proud of it. It's something, it's very hard for me to talk about still today, because it's one of those things that I'm just like, I can't believe I did that. So yeah, I spent a couple months using sugar daddies as my source of income, and as my source to give myself a living, and to also feed my addiction all at the same time. I remember being in that type of job, I would say, and I did not like the idea of selling my body for money, and I did not like how I was being used in those certain ways. And they would really treat me like crap. Obviously they're just paying me to do things, and a lot of the times I would be so high off Xanax when I would meet up with these sugar daddies, just because I didn't want to feel anything, and I didn't want to think about anything, and because I was just there just to be used, and because I needed money desperately. I realized that I didn't want this life anymore. I realized how much I need to stop using drugs, and how much I just needed to restart. And so when I was about 18 years old, it's crazy because I tell you I was 17, and then literally it's such a short period of time, and my life was literally crazy from the age of 16 to 18. And so when I was about 18 years old, I I basically stopped cold turkey. I told myself I can't do this anymore. And so I remember running back home and begged my parents for me to stay home and for them to let me live with them again, and they did. And I mean, with the 1,000th time I told them I would promise them that I wouldn't do anything anymore. And so that was the time that I meant it. And I just remember like being back home and going through my phone and deleting absolutely everyone and blocking everyone off of my phone, because I didn't want to deal with it anymore. I deleted all of my social media. I had so much anxiety because of how I treated my body and how I treated myself and what I was doing to myself, and I was just so sick and disgusted with myself. I ended up contacting my old drug counselor from the rehab I had stayed at when I was 17 years old, and I started to see him, and I was seeing him about once a week, and that was just really helping me. I had got a job. I got 2 jobs. I had worked at Starbucks and I was working at a gym in the local area, and I started to work on my fitness, and I was getting, I was working on my health. I was working on me, and I was working 2 jobs because I needed to keep myself busy from using drugs and keep my mind away from drugs. And I was doing really good. I mean, I wasn't thinking about it. I knew this was a good thing for me, and because I was working out, I mean, I had found something that I really, really enjoyed doing, that really made me feel good, and it was the perfect outlet for me. Fast forward to about 6 months later, and so I ended up just working one job, which was the gym, and I started going to a community college nearby, and so that was still keeping me busy, keeping my mind off drugs and just things like that. And so I was doing really, really good. And I do remember one of the main things I remember, and I'm finally telling you the good stuff now. So on Father's Day, I had met a guy at the gym. I was clocking out of work, and I had met someone at the front desk, and basically this guy, who is now my fiance, he was the one who introduced me to Jesus. We actually talked about God and the Bible the second day we were talking, and I took it in because I was like, well, he's cute and he loves God, which is really weird to me, but really cool. But so I gave him a chance, and I knew that he was different. I felt inside of me that this was going to be different. I mean, I had never met anyone like him. But we were just talking. We were talking for about 2 weeks, just going out to small dates, like to the movies and things like that. And we ended up dating 2 weeks later, which I know is pretty fast, but we both knew where we wanted to take it. Not saying that we wanted to be in a committed relationship right away, but we wanted each other. We wanted to be in a relationship. We started going to church together, and I remember the first day we had went to church together, it was definitely an experience for me, and that was where I gave my life to Christ. Like when you're at the end of the sermon, they'll say, well, if you don't know who God is, pray this prayer with me, blah, 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 blah. And so, me just, vulnerable to everything, and given the fact that I had gone through so much, and I was like, well, if this is the only hope I have, and if this is the only hope he says that I have, I mean, why not give it a shot? So I prayed that prayer with him, and I just remember from that day on, my life completely changed. And I can't even give you like specific examples, but I felt so much more free. I didn't feel like a recovering addict. I didn't feel any of these things. And I remember I got into a college Bible study group, and who have been completely amazing. I also remember after going to church that one day, I was like, what is the Bible? What is this awesome thing that they're reading out of? And so I remember reading the New Testament, and it took me about a week to read it, and it was just completely amazing, and it was completely life-changing. And if I had never met Hayden, who is my fiance and everything, if I had never met him, I mean, I don't know if I don't know how I would came to know Christ. I don't know how it would have happened, but I know that God had a plan the whole time, and it's just crazy to see him work in my life up till today. And you know, we're 3 years later and I'm engaged and I'm having a baby, and it's just all these crazy things that I just didn't think would happen. And I just get so overwhelmed with his love and his grace for me, because, you know, because of my past, I never thought that I would recover from that or heal from it, but he healed me from it completely, and I am so completely grateful. And I hope that what you guys got from this is that our God is gracious and he is merciful and he loves you, and there's no sin, there's no mistake that you can make that's too bad for him. He will redeem, because he has redeemed me, and I know it and I can feel it. And when you give your life to Christ, it just feels so different. It just feels so good, and you feel, I feel invincible. I feel so strong. And you know, yes, there are days where I still have fears and worries and anxieties, but I know I can always rest in the Lord, and I can always have hope in him, because what he's done for me, I can't thank him enough. And I don't hate my past. I am very grateful for my past, because without my past I wouldn't be where I'm able to be right now. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did like this video, give it a thumbs up, and I hope you can subscribe. I will be posting a lot more, because it's just something I want to do. So thank you guys for listening, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!